Hi, welcome back to Linux. This is going to be a little more involved, but this is just getting your desktop ready so that you can use it for, well, actually anything. If you want to use it for hacking, you can. If you want to use it for word processing, or just your, what we call the daily driver. This will make your Linux box work like you want to. Okay, so first thing is text editor. So I've got a text editor open right now. I don't like staring at white screens, and I do most of my writing inside of a text editor. And when you're looking at a white screen, that really, after a few, let's say 10 or 18 hours of looking at a white screen, your eyes really start to hurt. So I go to, Edit Preferences. Inside of Preferences, there are a few changes I make. First thing, the theme, I change it to Cobalt. That theme right there. That makes it a little bit easier on my eyes. And in the editor section, I display line numbers because I like to see that. I'm going to expand this out so you can see some of the features as I change them. I don't use the overview map. Now, if you want to, I say I don't. I sometimes use the overview map when I've got 10 or 20 or 30,000 words that I've typed and I want to see it by page, then I'll use the overview map then. So I do use it then, but I don't usually use the overview map. So I'm going to leave that off. The right margin, I do that all the time. If you can see, there's a difference in the color right here. It's showing you where a normal page is going to end. So it's giving you the columns across the page, and that's where it says it's going to end. And it says what column. It says that column 120 is where that page is going to word wrap. So if you're typing something, it's nice to know how far you've gone beyond where a normal page is. So you can see kind of where you're at. Highlight the current line. I don't use that. I don't use matching brackets. The tab width is 4. That's fine. But I don't like spaces instead of tabs. I do like it to put a tab character in. So a tab character is when you press tab, it actually tabs back and forth, versus if you do it this way and hit tab, it's actually putting 4 spaces in there instead of a tab. So I don't want the spaces. I do want tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that right there. Click. All right. So we've got that setting done. Then on the word wrap, I do have that on. I do not want to split words, so I have that off. And the scrolling, I use that all the time. So yes, I do want it to scroll. So there's a couple of settings that I choose. You may want to go over and tell it to save at a regular time, so it just auto saves your files. I don't like that because I'm just copying and pasting so much and ripping up files I really don't want to save over one of my files. For instance, this is now saying that there have been changes made to this file that I did not mean to make. So I'm going to go back and undo those changes so that star is gone there. But that's my editor settings. So, if those are the settings that you'd like, or if you get where, the white screen is really starting to hurt your eyes, then change over to maybe a darker screen. So moving on, let's go over to having that. Let's move on to terminal settings. Now the terminal settings, this little black box in the lower left-hand corner is your terminal. You can get to it from there. You can get to it from the menu. If you go up in the menu and type terminal, the terminal will come up. Or you can go down and you can start looking for the terminal inside of administration. So you can look over there. You can also hit Control-Alt-T and terminal will appear on your screen. Now you may notice already your terminal might look a little bit different than mine because I made a couple of changes because the terminal really gets on my nerves as its default setting. So the way you change that, you go to Edit, Preferences, and my preferences are I want it to be the initial terminal size right over here where I've bring up my terminal. I want it to be 100 columns across and not the original. I think it starts out at 80. I want it to be 100 across, and that gives me a little bit larger terminal so I can fit a little more text in the terminal without having to expand it. I do not want a terminal bell. That's every time you hit tab, it's going to go ding, ding, ding. You really don't want that. Next, the colors. I don't use the system theme. I'm using the green on black. And yes, some people might say, oh, green on black's really boring. Well, one thing, the black screen is really easy on your eyes. And I don't know, I grew up with green on black. So there you go. I don't want amber on black. I wonder if they even have that, amber. No. But green on black, it's one of those things that's very easy to see, and it works with my color scheme really well. And I'll show you what that is. Transparent background, I don't want a transparent background on mine. So the transparent background just gets in my way. But hey, it's a preference. Maybe you like the transparent background and you want to use that. If you are experiencing some, jitters on your screen, you haven't installed the NVIDIAs for your, I'm sorry, the drivers for your NVIDIA card or whatever video card you may have yet, then turn off transparency. It makes it a little bit easier on it, but that should not be the reason you don't use transparency. You should install the proper drivers, and so transparent background should just be a choice. Scrolling, I want to make sure this is unlimited, so I do not want to limit my scroll back. There's nothing to change here in the command or the compatibility. I don't change anything there. So that is it. I make mainly, well, actually all I change is text and colors. It's part of the reasons I like Linux Mint so much is there's so little to change inside of Linux Mint. It's already set up very closely to the system that I've used for, well, let's see, I started using it in about 1993. Used Unix and systems before that. Let's see. Yeah, this terminal I've only been using for maybe 7 years, these settings, but Linux Mint, I've only been using Linux Mint for about, I would say, 7 or 8 years. Switched from Ubuntu. And before that, Gentoo and a whole bunch of other systems, Sabayon that I used, and Red Hat, back when Red Hat existed as a free system. Played with Fedora a little bit, Mandrake, Mandriva, etc. But Linux Mint works, and it always just seems to get everything done. One of my commands. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, over here, the terminal settings, we got that. The bash settings. Now, this is going to get a little involved. So if you want to stop the video now and say, you know what, this is like overload for me at this point, and you just want to stop, that's fine. The bash settings, these are going to be my personalized bash settings. So when I bring up a terminal and I type X, it will exit and do a couple of other things. If I type LL, it'll give me a human-readable long listing format. Oh, speaking of those files, cat, not downloads, but documents, and let's say I call it GL mark. Yeah, look at those GL marks. So this is my GL Mark II score with my 1030 card with the drivers installed, and that's without the drivers installed. These are without the NVIDIA drivers and with the NVIDIA drivers right there. Which I should have calculator at the bottom so I can get to calculator really fast. I like calculator. So I'll pop that down there. So if I want to find out how much that is, I'll take the 5868. And all you have to do in Linux is highlight, by the way, and then middle click to paste. And I'll divide that, what was it, 295. 295, and see. That's a 19.89. So you can say that's 20 times faster. That's 20 times faster when you use the real NVIDIA graphics card, driver instead of the Nouveau. Once again, for the developers, I've said this in a lot of my videos, I really appreciate them writing the Nouveau drivers so that I can have a video when I boot my system no matter where I am. And if I have the drivers or not installed, I really appreciate that. But after getting that done, go ahead and install the right drivers for your system. Now, when I say we're going to make some bash configuration changes here, we're going to change the bash RC file. So if we look over here and we do a cat.bash RC, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it in your screen maybe a little bit better. So once again, we're typing cat.bash RC, and that's the normal file. Now, I don't want to change the normal file. So the normal file is usually pretty much to my liking. But there are some things that I may want to change a little bit, or I definitely want to change or add. And so I've made that, and I've put that in a bash file for us right now. In fact, I'll drag that over. I'm going to use our hot corner here. I'm going to go into the hot corner and grab the website and pull it over. And we can see the paste bin site where I have, which I'll put this in the comments, that I've put my bash settings. So these are my modifications that I use for bash. And if you want to go over and choose raw, you can look at that in raw. I'll just do that. I hit Control A to select all, Control C to copy. Of course, you just right click, copy, right click. You can select, oops. uncheck that. Select all. Once you select all, you can choose copy if you want to. You can certainly do that. But once we have this all selected, so I'll do that, I'm going to go over, and I am using VI, so I'm going to use vi.bashrc. You don't need to sudo this because this is inside your own directory. If you're not familiar with VI, then just pay really close attention to what I'm doing here and don't make a mistake. I go to the very end. The way I do that is through page down. So I go page down till I get to the end. I press O for open a new line. That's the letter O. And then I hit Control-Shift-V as in Victor to paste the text I copied. So this is pasting inside of a terminal. You can't press Control-V inside of a terminal. And right-clicking, it may not work inside of a terminal. So hit Control-Shift-V, which usually right-clicking works. But Control-Shift-V will paste. So that shift is critical there where you're hitting that Control-V, Control-Shift-V. Now once we've done that, and we can see that all these changes in here, I'm going to go through these changes, but first I'm going to save this file. So we've pasted the changes in here. I'm going to hit Escape, the Escape key, hit it as many times as you want, then :WQ. That's write and quit. Enter. So there you go. That was VIing a file. And if you're going to follow the Linux series, then we will get into VI. There are only 3 commands you need to know in VI to be able to be fluent in VI. There are a bunch of commands. There are books written on VI, so you really go through that. But there are only 3 commands that you need to be operational inside of VI. And that is that command we just did, the escape :WQ to get out, write, and quit, :Q exclamation point to get out without quitting, and I for insert, to go to insert mode. So there you go. We'll look at that at another time. But now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and close this terminal, which I don't have to. I can hit Control-Shift-N and open a new one. Well, maybe I'll do that right now, it's just so you can see it. So Control-Shift-N, I do that, and now my terminal comes up, and it looks different. It looks different than it did before. So if I go in this one, I hit echo $, let's say PS1. Then it'll give me all this kind of stuff there with what it did. Now if I go over here and do echo $PS1, then you can see it's a little different. I've got some different options in there. And if you want to bring this color in, you can bring that color over here. That's totally fine. You can make, that student at workstation one color. I'm using 2 colors. You can make the student the same color as the @ symbol, whatever you want to do. There are a lot of options. But let's go through that change now. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this one. Exit. This paste bin, which once again, I will, I'll put the raw in there. I will copy this paste bin. Let me just go ahead and drop over. And I'm going to go over here and let's look at 3. There. I'll put the paste bin settings right there in the file that I'll upload. So back over here. Close that out. So this is our terminal. This is our new terminal. I'll go ahead and type X for exit, and it's gone. I'll open up a new terminal, bring that up, and you may notice a couple of things that are added to our terminal now. This line right here, that's new. That tells you what session line number you're on. So if you type, I'll just say echo hello, and then you'll see that we're now on session line 1. So it starts out with line 0, now we're on line 1, line 2, 3, etc. It tells you what the day is and the time, Wednesday, January 1st, 1540 hours, Eastern Standard Time, the year is 2020. And then it gives you your IP address. Now, if you have multiple IP addresses, it will list each IP address separated by commas across the page there. So if you have, like, let's say 5 or 6 IP addresses, it may word wrap. So you may need to watch that. We'll look at the code and how to alter that in just a second. But this shows your IP address. Now, for me, if maybe you're a teacher out there, you're a professor, and you're looking at, hey, how do I manage my lab and what do I do in my lab? I'm always having to ask the students, hey, go ifconfig. I want to know so I can SSH into that computer. Or, what's your IP address so you can look at the web server you just built, whatever. Well, there you go. This will always show your IP address every time you open a terminal. So every time you open it, your IP address is there. And to close it, of course, you can hit X to close, like that, and it will close it. So let's go ahead and look at the bash rc file. What is in that file? So I'm going to do a vi.bash rc. Now when I go into this, you can see it's color-coded inside my Vim, because now I'm using Vim. And I'm going to drop down to where you see my little modifications. There we go. And I'm just say my modifications, the ones that came out today. A bunch of these are standard options. I just make a huge history length, but you're going to see that's not going to matter as much as we think it does in a second. This shell option, that's shopped, is shell option. This check window size, that's when you resize the window, it will automatically wrap the words in the right place for you. So that's a really nice thing to have. We'll move on down here. Got a couple things like set color. Yes, I want to set that color prompt. There's some alerts that are built in. I think this is from Linux Mint. I'm not positive, but I think it's built into Linux Mint. That may be from another system. Then there are other things on bash completion. I definitely want bash completion in there. And this is where things get kind of weird. So over here, this little function, that function write option, attempting to write history and verify ownership. Okay, well that pops up on the screen whenever you press the letter X to exit, which is an alias right down there. What does this do? Well, the first thing it does, it changes the internal field separator to be a carriage return. That's just for file names and directory names that it's looking for inside your home directory. This thing is going to go through and check the ownership, so it's going to look at the ownership of your directory. If it finds any kind of discrepancy, then it's going to go through and it's going to try to U-mount the GNOME virtual file system, which is often you'll see that when you pop in a USB device or you're popping in a number of different systems like a telephone or things like that. And that usually doesn't get unmounted. There have been all kinds of problems with that, just not mounting and unmounting properly. But it's, hey, it's there and it helps us out and it makes life easier. So I just try to unmount it and we'll see if it works or not. The next it goes through and it chones user, which you are the $user in this case, home, $user, so it makes your home directory there, which we could do a home dir, but I'm just using home $user. It will do this recursively, looking for anything that's not under your username, and it will show you what is changed right there with that C. The 2 out to dev null just means if you encounter any errors, just pipe those to dev null. Just get rid of those. And then we unset the IFS. Down here we have a bunch of aliases I use. So the LL, I want it to be color. I want to group directories first. I want it long listing. I want it human readable file sizes. The idea of that is when I type LL, I don't want huge numbers here. I want to know it's 384K. If it's a terabyte, I want to know it's like 1.4 terabytes. I don't want it to list a billion or a trillion and I have to sit there and try to figure out what that number is when you've got 1.389,843,246. I don't want to look at that because there are no commas and you have to figure it out yourself. Not fun. So through here, grep, we'll get into the -E option later, but I definitely want the color in there. The -E allows you to use regular expressions. It's extended expressions. So we'll look at the -E later. The find, the time find, that's just always so you can, I like to know how long a find took, and so it always tells me how long the find command I ran took. Moving and giving that interactive in case I'm overwriting a file, or copy interactive in case I'm overwriting a file. VI, always use Vim instead of VI. And then whenever I type apt-get, go ahead and sudo apt-get that thing. Depackage, go ahead and sudo depackage that thing. Aptitude, sudo aptitude, which I don't even think we use aptitude anymore. Screen, which is not installed right now, do a screen-L so it logs all the things that are typed. DD, which is convert and copy, but it's data dump, and that's the best way to remember it, is data dump, because you're dumping data over a stream or from a block device. But it comes from Unix convert and copy, which there is no Unix code inside of Linux. Linux is a completely independently developed operating system. It's just made to look like Unix. for convenience. So DD there, I do want a progress on there. Some versions of DD do not support progress. So if you're using a system like, let's say if you're using CentOS, CentOS last I checked last year did not support progress. So I don't know if they've changed that, but their DD did not support progress. Nmap, I only want open ports to come back, so I've got Nmap open on that. Now here's the logout. It changes permissions, and then it writes the history to a .history.save file, and then it logs out if that completed correctly. Now, over here, I've got this \exit, where you type X and it does a \exit, or exit and it does a \exit. Now, well, it actually just does exit. But this over here will just exit without running the alias. And the reason I want that is if I type the letter X, I don't want exit to then go down to this alias and run the command again. I just want it to exit. By putting a \, in front of your command, like if you have a command like X, well, let me just do \X, and it's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. If I do a \exit, it's just going to exit. It's not going to save to my history file. If I type X, then it is going to run that little alias. Now this prompt, it's inspired by Parrot OS, so I did fumble around with that thing a lot and make a lot of changes, but I really liked the initial idea created by Parrot OS. So thank you from the Parrot OS. Thank you to the Parrot OS security people out there. The inspiration came from Parrot OS for what we've done here. And that just gives you that funky looking student at workstation and the little $, etc. Now this over here is where you get the prompt command. The prompt command is what is hovering above our prompt. So that prompt command pops up before the prompt itself, and that is var IP. This is the little convoluted command I'm using to grab the IP and rip it out. It can be done more efficiently than this, but this is really, really clear, and it's easy to follow. Now, some of you might be looking at that saying, what? That is not clear and it's not easy to follow. What are you talking about? That's because we will look at building pipelines inside of Unix and Linux systems later on, and you'll see how easily this comes together if you're building a pipeline. And I'll just give you an example right here. This ifconfig a grep inet, and you can see how that pulls that out. And then I'll say, you know what? I don't want I don't want the local loopback connection, that's 127.0.0.1, and I don't want my IPv6 information on there, so I do that. And that comes back with this line. So I get one line back. Now that I've got the one line, then I just want, well, here, I'll just go through and do this and type awk print, and I'll just do $2 on this one, and you'll see that I get that right there. Now, if I had additional interfaces, then I want a comma there. So I put a comma. But if I put the comma there and I don't have additional interfaces, or those additional interfaces run out and now I've got a comma at the end, then, well, I'll want to get rid of that comma. So one way to do that is reverse it so the comma's first, and then say cut characters and look at 3 back, which was going to take that 1, 2, 3 right there, and then reverse it. Let me stop the word wrap here and just drag that out. So now I just get that. And that way it gives me a really clean output with a very simple, in fact, let me go history here and you'll be able to see this, a very simple pipeline. And this is like a pipeline sled. So if you go through this, and we're going through and creating a slide where we're sliding through the pipeline right here, and we're just building that pipeline. We just put another pipe on there, and we build that thing out. So for those of you who heard about Unix pipeline or creating a pipeline in Linux, that's what you're doing. Now, I'm not going to dwell on that right now. That's for a future episode. but this was kind of involved, and I'm going to go ahead and close it out now. So that's the bash prompt there. I'm going to go ahead and escape out of here. I actually don't want to write that, so I'll just hit Q for leave. So just Q, don't make any changes, and enter, and I'm out. And now I've got my terminal set up. I've got my calculator, and I've got text editor at the bottom. I just drag those down there. So if you go to accessories, just grab something like screenshot, pull it down to the bottom of your screen, and drop it there. You want to use that kind of a thing, just click it, and you can use whatever you want to do. So I hope that this video has been helpful. This did get a bit in depth. So if you're thinking, wow, this is a little complicated, the bash commands look a little weird, don't worry. If you follow through the series, or if you pick up learning the bash shell, or you start using Linux, you will pick this up in no time. This will become like second nature to you. Now, if you do have problems with it, go ahead and let me know. And pop over, say, I'm having problems with this, I'm having problems with that. What did you mean by this? And I am glad to answer those questions. Right now, I've got some time, so I'm glad to answer those. When time gets squeezed a little bit, I may be a little late on getting back, but I'm always happy to answer the questions there and help you out. I want you to be able to share freely in the open source Linux revolution that has been hitting the world since 1991. And big thanks to Linus Torvalds for releasing that and making it open where we could all add to it. And thanks to the other people out there doing a lot of open source solutions for us that we can use those too. Anyway, hope that this is helping. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and pop those over to me. And have a wonderful new year.